It was a quiet morning in the big glass building of Global Tech Corporation. The top floor was always silent, only filled with the sound of typing, soft talking, and the ticking clock. It was the day of the big board meeting, a meeting that would decide the company's future. Inside the boardroom, 12 well-dressed executives sat around a long, shiny table. Expensive suits, polished shoes, and gold watches showed their power. Coffee cups were placed neatly. Laptops were open. The CEO, Mr. Charles Green, sat at the head of the table. He was a tall, serious man with silver hair and cold eyes. "We need to cut costs," he said firmly. "The company is losing profit. Some departments must go. Staff needs to be reduced." Others nodded. Some looked worried. Some didn't care. They talked about numbers, plans, and people as if they were just names on paper. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. Tap, tap, tap. It was the slow sound of shoes on the marble floor outside the boardroom. Everyone turned to look at the door. The sound came closer. Then, the door opened slowly. In walked an old black janitor. He wore a faded blue uniform, slightly torn at the sleeve. His hands were rough, holding a small cloth and a keychain. His name tag said, Mr. Samuel. His hair was gray, and his back was a little bent, but his eyes were sharp and calm. The room froze. No one moved. One man whispered, "Why is he here?" Another laughed, "Maybe he's lost. This is not the cleaning time." The CEO raised his hand and said coldly, "Excuse me, sir. This is a private meeting." But the old janitor didn't stop. He walked slowly toward the table and looked at the faces in the room. His voice was calm but clear. "I know this is a private meeting," he said, "but I believe I should be here." Silence. Then laughter. The youngest executive smirked and said, "And why is that, Mr. Janitor? You're here to clean or take over the company?" Some others laughed too. A few rolled their eyes. But Mr. Samuel didn't smile. He pulled out a small chair from the corner of the room and sat down slowly, like he belonged there. "I'm not here to clean today," he said. "I'm here to talk." The CEO stood up. "Sir, if you do not leave, we will call security." "Go ahead," Mr. Samuel said softly. "But before you do, maybe you should listen. You might learn something important about this company and about yourselves." The CEO looked confused. Others whispered to each other. Mr. Samuel leaned back in his chair. "You all sit here making big decisions," he said, "cutting people like they are trash. But do you even know the people who helped build this company from the ground up?" A woman near the end of the table raised her eyebrows. "What are you saying?" Mr. Samuel looked at her and smiled kindly. "I'm saying, I was here before any of you. When this company was only 2 rooms and 1 broken computer, I was here. When your founder, Mr. Richard Blake, didn't have money to pay rent, I gave him my own. I cleaned, I lifted boxes, I even typed letters for him." The room went quiet again. "You must be mistaken," said Mr. Green. "There's no record of you in company history." Mr. Samuel nodded slowly. "Yes, because some people erased me." He looked around the room. His voice became deeper, stronger. "But I never left. I stayed. They gave me a janitor's job, and I took it. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted to watch, to see what kind of men would take this dream and run with it." Some in the room were now shifting in their seats. A few looked nervous. One young assistant, Anna, sitting near the door, looked at Mr. Samuel with curious eyes. She had seen him many times, always quiet, always kind. But today, he looked different. He looked like a man with a purpose. Mr. Samuel leaned forward. "And now, the company is falling, and you plan to fire more people, cut more hearts out. Maybe it's time someone reminded you what this company was really built on." Mr. Green finally said, "This is madness." But Samuel replied, calm as ever, "No, this is truth." Outside the boardroom, others began to gather. People noticed the janitor inside the room, sitting like a king among rulers. Phones were pulled out. Pictures were taken. Mr. Samuel looked around one last time and said, "This meeting is just getting started." The room felt tight with tension. Everyone stared at Mr. Samuel. the old janitor, still sitting calmly at the boardroom table. The top executives looked angry, confused and surprised. This was not part of their plan. They had come to talk about money, not about the past, and definitely not about a janitor. Mr. Charles Green, the CEO, stood up again. His face was red with anger. "This is not your place," he said. "You clean the floors. You don't sit at this table." Mr. Samuel looked up slowly and replied, "I know how to clean floors, but I also know how to build companies." One of the board members, Mr. Collins, laughed loudly. "This is a joke, right? Are we being filmed?" he said, looking around the room. Another executive, Ms. Burke, crossed her arms. "This is wasting our time." But Mr. Samuel didn't move. He sat straight, his hands folded in front of him, his eyes calm. "No," he said softly. "I'm not wasting your time. I'm saving it." The room went quiet again. Anna, the young assistant near the door, kept watching. Something about Mr. Samuel's voice made her feel still. It was strong but kind. He didn't look scared, even though powerful people were trying to throw him out. Mr. Green walked closer to Mr. Samuel. "Let me ask you this," he said. "What do you think you know about this company? You're not even on our employee list. You're not part of our files. You're just background." Mr. Samuel didn't blink. He took a deep breath and replied, "Files can be erased, but history cannot." Some executives laughed again, but their laughter was weaker now. The room felt heavy with something you doubt. "I was here when Richard Blake, the founder of this company, worked day and night," Mr. Samuel continued. "He had no team, no office, no support, just one dream and one friend." He looked around the room. "That friend was me." Now no one laughed. Some looked at each other. A few looked down at the table. Mr. Collins scratched his head, suddenly unsure. Mr. Samuel reached into his old bag and pulled out a small black notebook. It was worn out, with pages almost yellow. He placed it on the table. "This notebook," he said, "has every note, every plan, every promise made in the early days, and my name is in all of them." He opened it. Page after page showed handwritten plans, lists, and signatures. Some board members leaned forward, trying to see. The handwriting was real. The dates were from 25 years ago. "Richard called me his backbone," Samuel said. "But when the money came, I became invisible." A few gasped softly. Mr. Green tried to keep control. "Even if your story is true, it doesn't give you power here. This company belongs to shareholders now." Mr. Samuel smiled gently. "I don't want power. I want truth," he said. "And I want you all to remember what this company was built on: hard work, honesty, and respect." He turned to Anna. "You've worked here how long?" he asked. 8 months, she said. "Have you ever seen the founder's photos?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "They're in the main hallway." "Next time you walk by," he said, "look closely at the man standing beside him in those old photos." Anna blinked. She had seen those photos many times, but she had never noticed anyone else. "I'll look," she said softly. The room was silent. The executives didn't know what to say. They were trained to lead meetings, make decisions, talk numbers, but no one had prepared them for this. Mr. Green turned to security, who stood just outside the door. "Remove him," he said quickly. But no one moved. The guards looked unsure. People were now watching through the glass walls. Some were taking photos. One even started a live stream. Employees whispered, "The janitor is in the boardroom." And what's going on? Inside the room, Mr. Samuel stood up. He looked at each person in the room, one by one. "You can throw me out if you want," he said. "But the truth will still be here, and people are watching now." He pointed toward the window, where workers stood holding their phones. "This company was built by hands like mine. You forgot us, but we are still here." Mr. Green sat down slowly. His face had lost color. The room was no longer under his control. Mr. Samuel looked at Anna one more time and said, "Sometimes the janitor sees more than the boss ever will." Then he sat back down, not as a cleaner, not as a visitor, but as someone who had a right to be there. The boardroom was quiet. Everyone sat still. Even the people outside the glass wall had stopped whispering. Their eyes were locked on Mr. Samuel, the old janitor who had just told them he helped build the company. No one laughed now. Mr. Samuel gently touched the notebook in front of him. "Let me tell you a story," he said softly. "Not from a book, not from the internet, but from real life, from this very building." The CEO, Mr. Green, didn't stop him. No one did. Samuel's voice was slow and steady, like an old clock that never stopped ticking. 30 years ago, he began. This company was just 2 rooms above a bakery. There was no boardroom, no marble floor, just an idea, and a young man named Richard Blake. He smiled at the memory. Richard had a dream, Samuel continued. He wanted to build something different, something honest. A tech company that helped people, not just made money. But he was poor. He had no investors, no team, just one friend. He pointed to himself quietly. "I cleaned those 2 rooms. For free. I brought coffee. I stayed late. Sometimes I even slept on the floor so Richard wouldn't feel alone." Some people in the room looked surprised. A few looked ashamed. One day, Samuel said, the electricity was cut off. Richard had no money to pay the bill. He was about to quit. That night, I gave him the money I had saved to fix my roof. I told him, "Your roof will help many people. Mine can wait." His voice was soft now, filled with emotion. I believed in him, and he promised me, "If this company ever grows, you will grow with it." He looked me in the eye when he said it. A woman at the table, Miss Burke, looked away. She didn't want to meet Samuel's eyes. But when the company grew, Samuel said quietly, he was pushed out by new investors. A new board took over, and I was offered a choice: leave quietly or stay as a janitor. Everyone was listening now. Even the security guards outside had stopped moving. "I chose to stay," Samuel said. "Not because I was weak, but because I still believed in the company. I wanted to watch and protect the dream, even from the shadows." He looked around the boardroom. But what I saw over the years broke my heart. Greed, coldness, people fired like trash, good employees pushed out. And today, I heard you talking about cutting more people, like numbers. His hand rested on the notebook again. "This notebook has all the early promises and the original vision of this company. It's not about firing, it's about lifting." Anna, the young assistant, was now standing near the table. Her hands were shaking. She finally spoke. "Mr. Samuel, is it true? You really helped start the company?" Samuel nodded. "I didn't build the walls," he said, "but I helped lay the foundation." Anna looked around at the executives. "You all walk past him every day," she said, "but none of you ever asked his name." A deep silence filled the room. Then Mr. Collins cleared his throat. "So what now? You want us to feel guilty? You want your name on a wall?" Samuel shook his head. "I want nothing for me," he said. "I want change. I want you to see the people who clean your offices, fix your lights, and answer your phones. They are not just staff. They are the reason this company runs." Mr. Green leaned back in his chair. His face looked tired now. "This is a lot to take in," he said. Samuel smiled kindly. "Yes, but truth often is." He turned toward the door. "I will leave now, if you want. But remember, if you forget where you came from, you won't know where you're going." As Samuel stood up, people outside started clapping. Not loud, just soft, respectful claps. Inside, the executives remained quiet. For the first time in a long time, they weren't thinking like bosses. They were just people, listening to a man who had been invisible for too long. And deep inside, something began to change. Mr. Samuel was just about to leave the boardroom when Anna stepped forward. "Wait," she said, her voice strong. "I think there's something else you should all see." Everyone turned to look at her. She walked to a small cabinet in the corner of the boardroom. It was full of old files and company documents. Most people ignored it, but Anna had gone through it many times while doing boring office tasks. She opened the drawer and pulled out a thin brown envelope. There were words written in old handwriting across the front. "To be opened when the company forgets its roots, Richard Blake." Gasps filled the room. Mr. Collins stood up quickly. "Is that real?" Anna nodded. "It's been here for years. No one ever opened it. I didn't even know what it was until today. She looked at Mr. Samuel. Now, I think it's time. With shaking hands, she gave the envelope to Mr. Green, the current CEO. Mr. Green looked nervous, but he opened it slowly. Inside was a single letter, written in neat handwriting. It was from Richard Blake, the company's founder. Mr. Green began reading aloud. If you are reading this, it means something has gone wrong. I built this company with love, sweat, and honesty, with my friend Samuel by my side. He is more than a janitor. He is my brother in spirit. He kept me strong when I was weak. He reminded me why this dream mattered. If Samuel is still with the company, and you no longer remember his name, then you have lost your way. This company does not belong to numbers. It belongs to people. Never forget the ones who helped build the walls when there was nothing but air and hope. If Samuel is still standing, listen to him. And if I am no longer alive, this is my final wish. Samuel must be given a voice in every major company decision. His heart will keep you honest when money tries to blind you. Honor this, or you do not honor me. The boardroom was silent. No one blinked. No one moved. Mr. Samuel stood frozen. His lips trembled slightly, but he didn't cry. Not yet. He had held back tears for too many years. Mr. Green sat back slowly in his chair. His hands dropped to the table. This changes everything, he whispered. Mr. Collins tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Is this even legal? Anna spoke up. I checked. The founder's will was filed with the company's legal department. It was never cancelled. That means it's still active. Ms. Burke looked worried. So we have to follow it. Mr. Green nodded. Yes, if we ignore this, it could destroy the company's reputation. Everyone looked at Mr. Samuel again, this time with respect, not confusion or anger. He didn't speak. He simply sat back down, his hands still resting on the old notebook. Anna sat beside him and smiled. You waited all these years, she said, and now, justice came. Mr. Samuel looked at her gently. I wasn't waiting for justice. I was waiting for someone to remember. At that moment, someone knocked on the boardroom door. It was a senior employee from legal. I heard what happened, she said. There's more. Richard Blake also left behind a video file. It was never opened. The room filled with gasps again. A video? Mr. Green asked. Yes, it's titled For the Future, she said. Would you like me to play it now? Everyone nodded silently. A laptop was brought in and connected to the big screen on the wall. The video began playing. The face of a much younger Richard Blake appeared on the screen. His eyes were tired but kind. Hello. If you're watching this, it means I'm no longer around to remind you what this company stands for. So I leave that job to the man who never left my side, Samuel. You may have forgotten him, but I never did. Listen to him. Learn from him, or this company will fall like so many others built on greed. The video ended. Now Mr. Samuel finally looked down, and for the first time in many years, a single tear fell from his eye. But it wasn't a tear of pain. It was a tear of peace. Mr. Samuel was just about to leave the boardroom when Anna stepped forward. Wait, she said, her voice strong. I think there's something else you should all see. Everyone turned to look at her. She walked to a small cabinet in the corner of the boardroom. It was full of old files and company documents. Most people ignored it, but Anna had gone through it many times while doing boring office tasks. She opened the drawer and pulled out a thin brown envelope. There were words written in old handwriting across the front. To be opened when the company forgets its roots, Richard Blake. Gasps filled the room. Mr. Collins stood up quickly. Is that real? Anna nodded. It's been here for years. No one ever opened it. I didn't even know what it was until today. She looked at Mr. Samuel. Now, I think it's time. With shaking hands, she gave the envelope to Mr. Green, the current CEO. Mr. Green looked nervous, but he opened it slowly. Inside was a single letter, written in neat handwriting. It was from Richard Blake, the company's founder. Mr. Green began reading aloud. If you are reading this, it means something has gone wrong. I built this company with love, sweat, and honesty, with my friend Samuel by my side. He is more than a janitor. He is my brother in spirit. He kept me strong when I was weak. He reminded me why this dream mattered. If Samuel is still with the company, and you no longer remember his name, then you have lost your way. This company does not belong to numbers. It belongs to people. Never forget the ones who helped build the walls where there was nothing but air and hope. If Samuel is still standing, listen to him. And if I am no longer alive, this is my final wish. Samuel must be given a voice in every major company decision. His heart will keep you honest when money tries to blind you. Honor this, or you do not honor me. The boardroom was silent. No one blinked. No one moved. Mr. Samuel stood frozen. His lips trembled slightly, but he didn't cry. Not yet. He had held back tears for too many years. Mr. Green sat back slowly in his chair. His hands dropped to the table. This changes everything, he whispered. Mr. Collins tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Is this even legal? Anna spoke up. I checked. The founder's will was filed with the company's legal department. It was never cancelled. That means it's still active. Ms. Burke looked worried. So we have to follow it? Mr. Green nodded. Yes. If we ignore this, it could destroy the company's reputation. Everyone looked at Mr. Samuel again, this time with respect, not confusion or anger. He didn't speak. He simply sat back down, his hands still resting on the old notebook. Anna sat beside him and smiled. You waited all these years, she said. And now? Justice came. Mr. Samuel looked at her gently. I wasn't waiting for justice. I was waiting for someone to remember. At that moment, someone knocked on the boardroom door. It was a senior employee from legal. I heard what happened, she said. There's more. Richard Blake also left behind a video file. It was never opened. The room filled with gasps again. A video? Mr. Green asked. Yes. It's titled For the Future, she said. Would you like me to play it now? Everyone nodded silently. A laptop was brought in and connected to the big screen on the wall. The video began playing. The face of a much younger Richard Blake appeared on the screen. His eyes were tired but kind. Hello. If you're watching this, it means I'm no longer around to remind you what this company stands for. So I'll leave that job to the man who never left my side, Samuel. You may have forgotten him, but I never did. Listen to him. Learn from him. Or this company will fall like so many others built on greed. The video ended. Now Mr. Samuel finally looked down, and for the first time in many years, a single tear fell from his eye. But it wasn't a tear of pain. It was a tear of peace. The video ended, and the screen turned black. For a long moment, the boardroom stayed completely silent. No one wanted to be the first to speak. No one wanted to break the weight of what had just happened. Mr. Samuel sat quietly. His eyes were still wet, but his face was calm. Mr. Green, the CEO, looked around the table. He knew something big had to happen now, something that would change the future of the company. He took a deep breath. We need to talk, he said. All of us, about what we're going to do next. Mr. Collins leaned forward. Are we really going to let a janitor sit at this table? This is business. This is serious. Mr. Green stared at him. You saw the same letter I did. You heard the founder's wishes. Richard Blake trusted Mr. Samuel more than any of us, and maybe he was right to. Ms. Burke nodded slowly. We've been running this company like a machine. But people are not machines. We lost something important. Mr. Samuel finally spoke. His voice was steady. I'm not here to take anyone's job. I'm not here to give speeches. I just want to remind you what this place was built for, helping people. Anna added softly, You always helped people, Mr. Samuel, even when no one noticed. Mr. Green looked serious now. All right, I'm calling an official vote. Should Mr. Samuel be given a permanent advisory seat on the board, as the founders will requested? One by one, hands began to rise. Ms. Burke raised her hand first. Anna, even though she wasn't on the board, raised her hand in support. Mr. Green raised his hand next. Then the rest followed, even Mr. Collins, though he did it slowly. Every hand was now in the air. Mr. Green turned to Mr. Samuel. The board agrees. You now have a seat at this table. Mr. Samuel looked down, almost in disbelief. He had waited 30 years for this moment. Not for power, but for the truth to be seen. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I don't want a title. I just want to make sure this company remembers its heart." The meeting continued. Mr. Green stood and looked at the room. "There's one more thing we must do. We plan to lay off 20 employees next week. That plan is now cancelled. We will find another way to cut costs without hurting our people." A round of soft applause came from the hallway outside, where employees had gathered to listen. The mood in the room had changed. People looked at Mr. Samuel differently now. He wasn't just the old man who cleaned floors. He was the soul of the company. Anna turned to him and smiled. "This feels like a new beginning." Samuel smiled back. "It is. But don't forget, it only happened because someone finally stopped to listen." As the meeting ended, Mr. Samuel stood up. But instead of walking away with the janitor's cart, he walked out with the rest of the board, his head held high. Outside the boardroom, employees stood and clapped. Some had tears in their eyes. They had always seen Mr. Samuel as quiet and kind, but now they saw him as a hero. Mr. Collins stayed behind in the room. He looked at the photo of Richard Blake on the wall. "I was wrong," he whispered. Then he followed the others out. In the hallway, someone had placed a chair for Mr. Samuel. It had his name on it now. Not janitor, not staff, just Mr. Samuel Thomas, founding advisor. He looked at the nameplate for a long time. He didn't need it to feel proud, but it felt right. It felt like home. Weeks passed after Mr. Samuel joined the board, but the company was not the same anymore. Something had changed, something deep and powerful. The employees felt it first. There was a new energy in the halls. People smiled more. They greeted each other. They greeted Mr. Samuel too, not just as the janitor, but with respect. Every Monday, the boardroom had its regular meetings. And now, there was an extra chair at the table, Mr. Samuel's chair. It was simple, just like him. But when he spoke, everyone listened. He didn't talk too much. He only spoke when he needed to. But when he did, his words hit hard, because they came from experience, from years of watching and understanding people. One day during a meeting, Ms. Burke presented a plan to increase profits by cutting staff hours again. Mr. Collins nodded in agreement. "It will save money. That's what matters, right?" But Mr. Samuel raised his hand slowly. "Money matters," he said, "but so do people. If you cut their hours, they'll lose hope. They'll lose trust in you. That's more expensive than money." The room went silent again. Then Mr. Green said, "He's right. We'll find another way." That moment spread through the office like fire. The company wasn't just changing on paper, it was changing in its heart. New programs were started. A staff voice hour was created, where any employee could suggest ideas directly to the board. The janitors, security guards, and receptionists were given better uniforms and proper names on their badges. Staff who had worked over 10 years were honored with plaques and thank you dinners. One day, Anna walked into Mr. Samuel's small break room with a surprise. She held a blue envelope. "This came from the mayor's office," she said with a big smile. Mr. Samuel opened it slowly. Inside was a letter. "Dear Mr. Samuel Thomas, you are invited to speak at the City Leadership Conference as an example of true wisdom, humility, and leadership. The city would like to honor you for your quiet service and powerful voice that changed not just a company, but inspired many others." Mr. Samuel blinked in surprise. "Me? A speaker?" Anna nodded. "Yes, and I think it's time the world hears what this company almost forgot." Later that day, Mr. Green called a town hall meeting. All staff were gathered in the big open lobby. A stage was set. Lights were on. Cameras, too. When Mr. Samuel stepped onto the stage, everyone stood up. The applause was loud, strong, full of emotion. He looked at all the faces, young, old, tired, happy. All of them had stories, just like him. He smiled gently. "I'm not a businessman," he began. "I'm just a man who cleaned floors. But sometimes when you're down there, you see what others miss." People listened, many with tears in their eyes. I saw sadness. I saw good people ignored. I saw dreams thrown away. But I also saw kindness. I saw hope. I saw people who still cared. He paused, then said, "A company is not its walls, or its logo, or its money. A company is its people." The applause that followed was the loudest the building had ever heard. After the speech, media outlets started covering the story. The janitor who became a board member, how one man saved a company with his heart. Respect has no rank, the Samuel Thomas story. Other companies reached out, wanting to learn how to bring real values back to business. Mr. Samuel didn't become rich. He didn't want that. He still walked to work, still wore simple clothes, still greeted everyone with a smile. But now, he was known, not as a cleaner, as a leader,